guys, this is Gene. If you know me from my channel, you can check out, obviously you're familiar with some of my live streams, you can go and check out some of those to see some of the other opinions I have on topics like this. If you know me from my books, The Misunderstood Bible, 2nd edition on Amazon, as well as The Edge of the Void Essays Against Atheism. And in the future, you might know me from my fiction material, so you can check out that as well. Today I wanted to just casually discuss some of the issues I've had learning about philosophy, metaphysics, ontology, etc. And I touched on this in my previous video, but I want to give this more of a shot here today and just kind of explain some of the process of, that journey I've been on, how I've understood all this stuff. So, in short, my thesis, as it will, if we call this some kind of a video essay, even though I hate those, will basically be that I don't think philosophy has solved much at all. And I would consider the fact that even though you can trace most ideologies to either Plato or Aristotle, when we're talking about Europe especially, and anywhere where European ideologies have spread, so China would count as well, because you'd have Marxism spread there, obviously, and that's not native to China itself. But those ideologies aside, I don't think most people are serious students of philosophy. I mean, people have realized this is not getting anyone anywhere. When I say philosophy, I mean insane speculative metaphysics and stuff that doesn't really make any sense. It doesn't solve anything. So for so many centuries, maybe even thousands of years, people have tried to use metaphysics to solve the world. They've tried to use philosophy to solve all the issues of the world. And I've noticed that they haven't solved much. I mean, there's examples of people saying the soul is diametrically opposed to the body, therefore everything related to the body is evil, so we have to be totally pure. And you can see where they got that line of reasoning from. Then you'll also see other people throughout history, in the history of Hellenism, saying, well, the soul is so diametrically opposed to the body that nothing we do in the body will impact the soul. So actually you can do anything. And as you can see, the problem wasn't solved. Nothing was solved via the metaphysical implications of just having the soul. So at least when you're dealing with, religious dogma and religious decrees, you're not just speculating on philosophy. I just don't think it's been able to solve much of anything. The soul is one great example. All of the issues that people complain about, gender stuff, etc., that, again, has to do with the soul. Like, how can you even hop from one sex to another if you don't have a soul? How can you be born to the wrong body when there's no soul? So how has this stuff helped? How has this made life easier and less complicated? I don't think it has. Not saying that nobody has any spirit whatsoever, but speculating about something like that has not made anybody's lives better. I've discussed in previous videos where I said, the why the West died and why it will remain dead is an overstimulation of philosophy. Just everything has to be philosophical. Everything has to be analytical. You must know the answer to everything. But in both the Bible and even in the Quranic tradition, so in Islam, there are mysteries that God has that he doesn't give to humanity because he thinks humanity shouldn't have them. And humanity doesn't need to know everything. I mean, the first sin of Adam and Eve is eating from the tree of the knowledge of good and evil. It's that knowledge part, that needing to know every single thing, which again is also the heresy of the Gnostics, that can be a danger. Now, being ignorant and stupid and not caring about anything intellectual at all is not a good recipe for society. But that doesn't mean that we have to go to the opposite extreme and say, hey, we have to know everything. Everything has to be rational. Everything also has to be speculated. We need philosophy for everything. I don't think so. I haven't seen the good implications for it. And if you go beyond just human beings, even though we could talk about the bad implications of just pondering philosophy on human beings, but I've already done that in many videos. You look at animals, for instance. I'm one of the only guys that I know of, at least, in the sphere of apologetical YouTube stuff on the internet, which in itself is already a very niche field. I think I'm one of the only guys who accurately talks about animal suffering, animal cruelty. It's a major problem. When I make fun of Alex O'Connor, Cosmic Skeptic, and all these other guys, because they are dumb and they don't really know what they're talking about, and I've heard their arguments 1,000 times per day, as a matter of fact. But they're right to bring up those topics. They are right to critique the animal suffering problem. It is a big problem, and a lot of people just don't seem to care. I've gone on so many boards and forums, and I've just looked up people's responses to this, especially on some of the Protestant forums. And when I say Protestant, I mean real Protestants, so I'm not even talking about Baptists and evangelicals. I love to say, well, we can't metaphysically prove that animals can feel pain the way we do. Why is that? Well, they don't have a rational soul. It's like, there we go again. The soul problem has not solved anything. How is this making A, our lives, and B, the lives of other animated, sentient beings better? This obsession with the soul. Again, not saying there is no spirit whatsoever. It clearly is. It's clearly there in Orthodox tradition. It's clearly there in the Bible, and it's in pretty much all the religions. So I'm not saying you can't believe in anything whatsoever, but to speculate on it and say, well, actually, the reason why I'm special is I have a blue soul and you have a red soul. That's not solving anything, right? Avicino, whatever he wants to call himself, he was wrong when he said that animals have like 10 different instincts to explain how they are understanding things logically without having a soul. Because a soul equals logic. So as I said in my previous video, these people went to great lengths to deny animals' logic because they thought that when the Bible says, man is made in the image of God, the image of God part is the soul. And why is the soul the image of God? Because the soul is what allows man to be rational and logical. Scientifically, we know that's not the case. The brain is what makes you rational and logical. And even in the Old Testament, it says that God searches your physical brain, your physical heart, your physical kidneys. So the soul being rational logic, that doesn't really jive with actually what the prophets who wrote these books talk about. Back to the animal problem, I don't understand how this soul stuff's helping anybody. In fact, it's detrimental, because you could almost argue that someone who's a materialist has a better way of understanding the natural world, because he takes it as he sees it. He's more empirical. We talked about empiricism in the previous video. So I'm not saying you must be a materialist or anything like that. This isn't even an argument for it. It's just simply saying that these obsessions and speculations of the soul are so bad that a dialectical materialist is making more sense than you if you're going to believe some of the stuff that these guys quacked up centuries ago. We know that animals have logic. We know that crows understand water displacement theory. There's a variety of other things I've mentioned. It's in my recent book, The Edge of the Void, Essays Against Atheism. I see all these tweets all the time with these guys saying, I'm a Roman Catholic, but the most influential books in the world are written by Aristotle and Plato. It's like, well, you just showed your hand there, buddy boy, okay? You just said the line that you don't actually seriously follow religion. You do in a way, but you're following philosophy more. There's so many people I talk to. Why did you accept Christianity? Well, I read Plato's Republic. What? I've heard that before, all right? And not just from direct relations, communications I've had with people, but from friends of friends who've reported the same thing. So why did you become a Christian? Well, I like Plato's Republic. I'm sorry, but that's just not what's in the scripture. You're not going to find that there. And that's why you see so many modern, not modernist, but modern theologians dunking on philosophy a lot. Father Thomas Hopko goes to great lengths to say, we don't follow Parmenides or Pythagoras or Plato or any of that stuff. Sometimes he goes too far, but he gets that from Archpriest George Florovsky. Who else gets information from that same root is Father John Romanides. These three names have influenced more of modern Orthodox Christianity than pretty much anybody else. And they're all in agreement on the fact that the Platonism has to stop. They all agree on that. If I'm going to be walking into the so-called holiest building in the world, if I go to the Vatican, I don't want to see Raphael with Aristotle and Plato. It's got nothing to do with anything. It's not because I have a chip on my shoulder about this stuff. I don't need to care about the philosophy that much. I care about it because a lot of it's wrong. Not all of it, but a lot of it's wrong. Just speculating for thousands of pages while real life goes ahead without you. And that's exactly what happened with the Communist Revolution. So this stuff needs to come to an end. And I just am not seeing how speculating on these topics is going to make anybody's lives better, nor does it jive with reality. So that's my biggest problem. It doesn't really match reality, and I don't see the point in it either. And my whole journey has basically been, I used to think people just follow the plain text and they follow the plain tradition and the canons. And I'm sure that most normal people do. But on the internet, that's what I assumed as well. But then you get on the internet, you realize it's like Willy Wonka. We're in a world of pure imagination. That's not what people in real life do. You have people who all have, profile pictures of random philosophers and saints, and they think that they are like these people. And you're not. Like, if you haven't experienced God, how can you be like those people? So I always found that to be perplexing. And I've come to be a little disillusioned personally with the state, and I've made a video in the past also on this, with the state of this online apologetical stuff. I'm not saying it's all bad. There are some really good, influential people out there who are doing good stuff. But mainly it's the people on Discord, the people on Twitter. Not really the people creating the content, as a matter of fact. It's really more the people posting about it. And I think it's created a false sense of what we think knowledge actually is, and what we think experience and truth is, because truth is not always pure rational stuff, because pure rational is itself subjective, because if you're going to be speculating on metaphysics, I have to dunk you down and you no longer believe in rationale at all. But it's not just about, it's also about experience and sense experience. We talked about that before too. So that's it. That's like kind of just my rant on that topic, which I think is important for a lot of us to understand the limits of these, let's admit it, they're not secular, but it's like mystery cult phenomenon. And with Aristotle, he goes in a much more empirical route. But I don't see how this stuff has really moved us along in a proper way. Like, the end result is we either get, like, if we skip aside theology for a minute, the real life end result of Aristotle and Plato is a diluted form of free market capitalism or communism. That's kind of it. Like, that's what happened in real life. When we leave the essay writing and we leave the debates and stuff, what happened in real life was people who followed Aristotle would justify kind of libertarian ethics, individual freedom and liberty, even though Aristotle himself wasn't a huge fan of that. You see a lot of Catholics in the New World who justify being against slavery by quoting Aristotle. That's the first argument given to the kingdom in Spain, to the king of Spain. And with Plato, of course, the kind of communitarian ideal, you're not your individual, you're part of the community. Sparta is the ideal, not Athens. And the entire community needs to be raised up on the great chain of being. So those are the two paths in real life, and we have to address that this stuff happened in real life. So feel free to study this philosophical stuff, but you're going to start to get disillusioned by it if you're anything like me. You're going to realize this is all just kind of spinning the thread, spinning the yarn, and we're not addressing the root issues that, number one, impact people's lives. Number two, we can use to improve the world in a good way. And number three, are we focusing on God or are we speculating on God? Those are important things to remember. Thanks very much for watching. Please remember to like, comment, subscribe. Share this video, I suppose, and if you have any questions, leave it in the comment section for the future. That's kind of it, and look forward to more content. I'm Juan.